We've got one more session before the coffee break, and I'm really excited about this session. Apprenticeships has been mentioned already, Sandra mentioned it, but this one is looking at the future of apprenticeships in closing the skills gap. So we've got Louise, Ella, Martyn and Matt from KPMG to talk about that journey and how apprenticeships can be used in this context. So welcome that panel up to the stage, please.
Good morning. Lovely to see so many people here today. So I'm Louise, Scott-Worrall. I lead KPMG Learning Services in the UK. Obviously, KPMG has a very long and proud history of being in the financial services and supporting financial services. Apprenticeships is one of my passions. Before I was at KPMG, I was in the further and higher education sector. So it's very dear to my heart. Thinking through about some of the things that we've already heard this morning, it was occurring to me that if skills development is the pillar, then I think actually apprenticeships can be the delivery vehicle for growth of the government skills mission. And I'm delighted to have my panel members today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them, so you can be thinking of not difficult questions, but insightful questions, please. So Martyn, thank you for joining me. Martyn is with Pearson. He's the Vice President there. He's been with Pearson since 2012. He leads their training delivery business in the UK, a business that has circa 5,000 apprenticeships on programme at any one time. He's also responsible for how Pearson engages with employers that rely on these qualifications. So Martyn is going to bring some good insight there on the future of apprentices and how we close the skills gap. Similarly, Matt is a colleague of mine. He's head of lifelong learning at KPMG, looking after our own people, our own colleagues. And he's responsible for setting the strategy for the development of our more than 3,800 early careers learners and thinking through the delivery of qualifications and how we build up skilling programmes into skills for our staff. And Ella, I'm really, really delighted to welcome Ella. She is a level 7 apprentice. So she sits within our financial services sector, studying hard towards her level 7 CIMA qualification. At KPMG, we have a 360 degree apprenticeship, which means we rotate our colleagues and our apprentices around the business to give them a varied and wide appreciation. She's currently in our people consulting practice and she's specialising there. Memory serves me correct, Ella, you joined in COVID, so that was probably a very different start to your career. But we're really looking forward to your insight of what it's like firsthand to be an apprentice. So actually, I'm not sure where the iPad went, but hopefully I will get the iPad back at some point. Please do think of questions then for Martyn, Matt and Ella. I'm going to start with Martyn first, if I may. We've heard a lot today, Martyn, from Sandra, some really useful insight about that kind of skills gap. So just really interested in what you think the role is for apprentices in reducing that skills gap and how we can build future capacity and capability in the UK. And how do we increase the uptake?
Yeah, I think that we're all looking at policy to help us to do both those things. The first thing I'm really looking at the moment is how the to be published industrial strategy in June will link back into government's growth mission, how that's really going to pull through what we as employers and apprentices want to see in terms of driving apprenticeships and how they will drive growth, particularly economic growth. If you do get to read the industrial strategy in June, you'll see that financial services is called out as one of the 8 growth focus areas for economic growth, so that's going to be really important. The sorts of things I think we can do as a skills ecosystem to drive uptake, well, there's a number of things really. It's a collective responsibility across policy, across awarding organisations, and across employers, because no one element of that ecosystem can drive this on their own. the first thing I think is really around, and what I hear every day from employers when we speak to them about apprenticeship programs is, how can you make it easier for us to hire people or to put our existing employees through apprenticeship programs? And there are a number of things to do that. We've already seen that the recent government reform around policy on apprenticeships is trying to ease that burden. I think it's up for debate whether it's gone far enough, but certainly around things like endpoint assessment, I really feel for Ella because she has that yet to come after 5 years, but it is coming. And how do we make it easier for the apprentice, but also for the business, the employer, to make sure that that program is delivering what that program is supposed to do, that the qualification at the end actually means something to both the business, the employment sector, and to the individual going through the program. So those are really difficult things to balance, and policy has probably got to get that right, but we can't, I think other speakers have said, we can't be a bystander in this. We need to influence, we need to shape policy, we need to inform the government so they make the best decisions in the interests of the nation and economic growth. The other thing I probably would pick out for this sector is level 7. You probably, like me, have your eyes on level 7. I think there's an area there where, from our own experience, I put one of my managers through a level 7 program and leadership management program, picked up his MBA through it, didn't have a first degree, so he went straight from level 3 to level 7 and probably talks to, I think Mandy was saying it about the level 5 gap, that probably speaks to it why a level 7 qualification or a level 6 is attractive to people with level 3 qualifications who've not had that chance prior to work to go through a degree level program. But I think also there is something to be looked at with level 7 and whether there are options for existing employees without a level 6 or a level 7 to step into level 5 and then maybe subsequently to step up to a level 6 or a level 7 from there. But it's a difficult balance to strike, because what we don't want to do is to dilute an occupational standard to a level where it has less meaning to an employment sector. But also, we need to balance that with the needs of the employer and to incentivise the employer to have a programme that really means something and will deliver business benefit.
Thank you, Martyn. And that actually, I think, relates to one of the earlier questions on the previous panel in terms of kind of developing employees in your organisation, or also when you're recruiting, seeing that talent potential, potentially people coming in at level 3 and kind of seeing how you can create a pathway for them to achieve the qualification. I really like your point there, Martyn, as well, about don't just be a bystander. As employers, how are you being proactive and talking to government and thinking about kind of helping shape policy? Ella, I'm going to come to you, if I may, as an apprentice. I think we're all kind of dying to know, really, what was it about the apprenticeship programme that drew you to it, and how is it helping you develop your skills?
Thank you so much, firstly, everyone, for listening to me today. I think the first few points just to raise was, for me, it was all about being able to apply the learning to the world. I personally felt sometimes when sitting in school, what is the point of learning this? Yes, this is really interesting, but what does it mean? I can't see it tangibly in the world. How can I apply my skill set? What is the point of me putting all this effort in and learning this knowledge? So when I did some shopping around for what I wanted to do post-school, I looked at apprenticeships and I thought, okay, I can do a fantastic job and learn from great people around me. I can learn and do a kind of transferable qualification. I wanted to make sure that I was really upskilled and able to have something that I could take away and would be useful for the industry as a whole. And then how could I apply that back, and for the jobs that I'm doing, can I see my learning in for example, I'm a consultant, so in the consulting work I'm doing, am I able to apply that? So the answer for those was yes. So for me, I thought, great, apprenticeship is the way. I also, being an accountant, did the maths for the money per lecture, and I was not a huge fan of the number that came out at the end. So I thought, let's skip that route and just go straight into the workplace and see what I can do there. And just to touch on briefly why I chose KPMGs. So as Louise mentioned, it's the 360 element, which allows you to rotate around departments. And I think for me, that gave me comfort when applying for an apprenticeship scheme, because when I think back to when I was 17, 18, it's a really scary decision choosing to join work and, sign up for a 5-6 year course, which those level 7 qualifications are. I remember sitting at home thinking, gosh, I've only been around 18 years and I'm applying for a 6-year scheme. That is a third of my life that I'm just applying for right now. And I don't have any memories pre the age of 6. If any of you do, you've got better memories than I do. But I thought, okay, if I only remember aged 6 to 18, that's 12 years. And it's a 6-year course. Gosh, that's half my life I've ever known, just signing away on an apprenticeship scheme, which is obviously fantastic, but it's a really scary thing. So being able to rotate around different areas gave me comfort that actually, if I didn't like it or made the wrong choice, it wasn't the end of the world. I could rotate. And I always use the analogy of when you go clothes shopping, I like to try on clothes before I buy them in case they fit. So why would you, and I think, if you're applying for a job, you're not necessarily going to say, right, there's 3 lines of this job, that is my career, because you have no idea what it's like. You might hate it, you might be amazing at it, but also importantly, you might think, this isn't for me. So being able to try different areas of a business before actually going, this is what I think I want to do, was really, really important. And just to touch on the skilling point of view, I think if I think back to the skills I've picked up along the way from different people, I'd like to think that I've brought a lot of that knowledge from people around me on board from the different departments and rotations that I've done. There's obviously 20% of the apprenticeship programme, my hours have to be done as off-the-job learning. So there's a requirement for me to learn. So I push myself and make sure I can try new things, like speaking here with you today. And just as an example, it gives you amazing opportunities. So I'm actually at secondment at the FSSC, so was heavily involved in that AI paper that Claire mentioned earlier, which I don't mind admitting was a completely new skill set for me, something I hadn't done before. So, being able to learn from the people around me, such as Katerina, who always does the Future Skills Report, was something that was really valuable. So hopefully I can bring that back to KPMG and also, the wider industry. So I think hopefully it creates quite a well-rounded individual who can actually learn from those soft skills and people around you.
Ella, thank you for that. And just hearing you kind of talk about the 6 years and the percentage of your life, it makes me feel very old, but also makes me just think about kind of our role as leaders in organisations and in learning and development of actually kind of taking that into account when you're having conversations. Ella obviously came through our 360-degree apprenticeship programme after college. But if people are coming through to your organisation, it's a big deal for them. And I guess I haven't thought about that, Ella, so thank you for speaking very eloquently and authentically. Really brilliant. And clearly can see that you've developed a lot of soft skills as well. So well done you. Matt, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, you're our head of lifelong learning, and you're responsible for the apprenticeship programmes for people like Ella are doing. But how important are apprenticeships in kind of our organisation and similar organisations? And what benefits do you think they are delivering for our future talent? And can you just share some lessons, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer simply, phenomenally important. And the benefit, here's the benefit. It's, enough said. I'm not sure I could have done this when I was your age, Ella. So it's really commendable just how well that programme works and the effort that goes into it. So at KPMG, we've got about 1,000 apprentices of the 3,800, got them right across the organisation in accounting, managed services, in our tech departments. We've really scaled that up over the last 10 years, and I thought it was really telling this year that in our audit function, which is the biggest employer of early careers at KPMG, we're going to take more apprentices than grads this year for the first time. And it's not necessarily grads versus apprentices. There's always that discussion in businesses. But I think the playing field has been slightly levelled over the last few years. You used to perhaps employ graduates more for the life experience that they bring, that they've had a few jobs before. They turn up with a sense of teamwork, organisation, collaboration. We are finding now more and more graduates are actually, this is their first job. So that kind of spiky profile of skills is evident across the full population. And apprenticeships are just a fantastic way for that applied learning And for those really practical learners who perhaps don't want to have gone to university to do a degree and have wanted another route in to take something that is fundamentally all about skills. So there's some real social mobility benefits to apprenticeships, absolutely. We get people coming to KPMG looking at professional services that wouldn't never have even thought about coming to us. And they bring a diversity of experience and thought, which is where the magic happens with innovation. So that's really integral, a really integral benefit. It would be remiss of me not to say level 7 worries me slightly. On one hand, when I saw the announcement, I thought under 21s, great, because we do have a lot of under 21s who will progress from a 4 to a 7. But then we were looking at some of the other apprenticeships that we were considering, so the AI leader. So, well, you're not going to get many under 21s being able to be funded for that. Now, we're in a slightly different position to a lot of SMEs who we could potentially still pay for that. But for a lot of SMEs, they'll be thinking, we just can't afford that. And all of a sudden, that detracts from some of the social mobility benefits, because apprenticeships for everyone, that's what started to build that parity of esteem over the last 10 years. And I just worry it eats at the edges of that. So in terms of some of the lessons learned, adapt, readapt, adapt again. We're just starting our forward look of planning for programs for next year, and there's always, what do we need more? It's never a case of do we need more, it's what are the skills that are needed. So we're already starting to look at some of the level 4s. We heard from some of the speakers earlier that I think there's a real untapped talent community out there that perhaps don't want the big degree, but you need a bit more training than A-level. And we do see a latent demand for some of these level 4, level 5. So we're actively going to start looking at those. And it's not just about bringing talent in, it's looking at the future apprentices that we're trying to build. So like I said, you've got quite a spiky profile joining. You need to level the playing field around some of the things with critical thinking, smart collaboration, digital fluency, and AI. AI is starting to take away perhaps some of the skills where our apprentices would learn their trade craft, report writing, some of the low-level analytics, some of the supporting reg and compliance activity. But with that comes a challenge, because how do you get them to still learn this? But at the same time, there's a real capacity gain to be made there as well. So starting to think about, well, what are those value-adding activities of say, the future auditor, where it's going to be more about relationships, it's going to be more about audit quality, and it's going to be more about process improvement. So how do we start training them on those tools and developing that mindset a lot earlier on? One last thing, a key lesson learned, and we're still learning it right now, is that I was reading a report recently that really resonated. 65% of Gen Z people are talking and presenting with mental health challenges, and we do see this. It's a really tricky environment, professional services and in the world of accounting. And I don't think mental health, it can't no longer stay within the realms of HR and occupational health. And our Chief People Officer talks more and more about needing to build mental health literacy amongst first-line managers, because they're the ones who can really start to make a difference and spot these challenges a lot earlier on. So I see that as being absolutely integral to ensuring the continued success of our early careers programs.
Matt, thank you for those. Some really great lessons there. And I particularly like that, let's think about the whole person in terms of their skill development, but also kind of their health and well-being. Thank you. Martyn, I'm going to come back to you if I may. So we've heard about a lot from our earlier speakers, Sandra, where we were talking about kind of the half-life of skills. Matt, you started to touch there on technological advancements in AI. But Martyn, how do apprenticeship programmes keep up to date, and how do they promote that concept of lifelong learning? And how do we make sure that by the end of the programme, they're still current?
Yeah, it is an issue that has probably been prevalent across all learning, actually not just apprenticeships, in the last 18 months, certainly in detail, but it's been on our radar for some time at Pearson. I think as an awarding organisation, we'd like to move to use AI probably much more quickly than our customer community is probably ready for just yet. But coming back to apprenticeships, two things really. The design of an apprenticeship program probably could be more modular so that we can insert specific AI-related modules at whatever level into a program, allowing for the 20% customization that we can do on any program for an employer anyway. But inserting an AI module into, for example, a senior leadership program would be really useful. And then the converse would be useful as well. So inserting leadership training into an AI-related level 7 qualification, for example, would be extremely useful. What we're seeing with very technically qualified people is that they progress to senior roles in technology-based companies, but actually have had no formal leadership management training. So something to do that at the start will be really useful, I think. And then we haven't mentioned agentic AI just yet, but AI having agency is something that's going to be coming on the horizon very, very quickly. And that makes it even much more of an enabling tool and frees us up as people to do the human things we've been talking about in the workplace, and they're extremely important because for apprenticeships, that's written into the framework, right? So behaviours, the way you exhibit what you learn and the skills you have in the workplace as behaviours are in the gift of the employer to measure. So apprenticeships are absolutely key.
Thank you, Martyn. I really like that kind of modular approach and thinking about how you do that. And certainly we're very much hearing from our clients that the AI for leaders is definitely a gap. But I suspect that's a different panel discussion, so I won't go there. I'll stick to the apprenticeships. We've got some great questions coming in. Thank you. Where have we got to? So lots of comments coming in thanking you, Ella, which is brilliant. Matt, there's a question here for you. So we've heard about talking about grads and apprenticeships, but what do you do for current colleagues in role? How do you keep those other colleagues reskilled?
Okay. Well, thank you to whoever asked.
Angela, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angela, because no, that tees me up perfectly. So there's lots of different initiatives there. I think the use of apprenticeships to upskill, I think we're priming the organisation to do that now, because finally it's that parity and breaking down some of the incorrect perceptions of what an apprenticeship is. That has finally been removed. It's taken years to do it, but because people get very hung up on the level 6, level 7, it's like, well, it's a level 3, level 4. It's like, well, yeah, but that's if you don't know it, then that will give you the depth and breadth of the learning. So we're starting to look at some of the AI-related apprenticeships to upskill existing staff. The demand is huge for that. What we're also doing as well is looking at our qualification strategy, which, if I'm honest, was really quite narrow. It focused on core industry qualifications, accounting and tax. But we've really seen a latent demand start to build out, particularly around sort of mid-tier managers being in perhaps 8 years, saying, I love KPMG, I want to stay here, but I want to learn. And there's loads of great internal learning, some formal, some informal, that is surface, but I want that next step in my career of perhaps doing a qualification that in a specific area. So we're looking at things in sustainability, qualifications in AI. I think to properly unlock that, it needs higher education to step up a little bit. We talk a lot about potentially some of this being more modular and stackable qualifications so that people could do this over an extended period of time. I think we're really looking at what the lifelong learning entitlement means to us. It's coming in 1st of January 2027. That's no time at all for employers to have to start to get ready for what that means in terms of what are our employees going to be bringing to us to say what they want to learn, how they want to do it, because it's going to give them a lot more potential autonomy over it. And what would the funding look like? Would this be self-funded? Would we joint fund? How would that work? So there's loads of great initiatives on the radar, but the kind of real crossover is bringing employment and education a lot closer together.
I really love that, Matt. And I think it's really important, isn't it, both as an employer, but also beholden on us as employees to kind of manage our own careers and be having those conversations. But we have to make sure that our managers are adept at recognising the signals and knowing what some of the pathways are. Interesting question here, Martyn. I'm going to come to you first. So question from Claire. How should small companies get started with apprenticeships?
I would, whatever sector you're in, I would advise going to a larger enterprise and asking them for a levy share, asking them to pay for your apprenticeship programs. They also might, if they're a really responsible employer and you're a supplier to them, they might also lend you expertise to help you set up and run that program. Or come talk to me and I'll help you do it.
An offer for help there, Claire, to come to Martyn directly. I have a flashing time here to say we're out of time, but I'm just going to come back to you, Ella, because it is all about the apprentices. So I'm going to come back to you for the last question. In terms of what advice could you give kind of financial services colleagues in the room about kind of what's the one bit of advice you'd give to recruit more apprentices to their organisations?
Really great question. I think for me, it would be how can you demystify the sector? I think, especially speaking from a young person's perspective, financial services sounds this really horrible, scary, I don't understand it, don't want to go there industry. So actually, if we can make a kind of, I'm not saying it's a document, but something that explains what financial services is, why it's a great place to work, the amazing networking and different opportunities that it offers, what some of the jargon means. I think we're quite, we love an acronym in financial services, and it's all quite complicated when you're a young person. You think it's almost so complicated I won't bother because I'm never going to be able to understand it. So actually just breaking down what the sector is about and some of the benefits of the sector is really important. And I think that coaching element as well, the fact that you're not going to be on your own when you join. I mean, I look back at all the amazing mentors that I've had over the last 5 years, and I know that I wouldn't be in the position I am today without their support. And I think it is that soft guidance that you get from those people around you who really nurture and want to support you that's invaluable as part of an apprenticeship. So offering the fact that financial services is a fab place to work, and actually it's not scary. These are just words, and it's just a regular job. And also that you won't be by yourself, and people want to support you. So you'll be taken on the journey. Would be my advice.
Ella, thank you for that. Hopefully you'll agree. Some great insight there from our panel. Thank you to Martyn, Matt, and most of all Ella. Put our hands together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and really, really exciting. Some great points there about some of the challenges in apprenticeships, that gap at level 4, level 5, the modularisation and new technologies, agentic AI, etc. I just want to say I can fully attest to the quality that you can get through apprenticeships. Ella's been seconded to the Commission for the last few months, and it's really, really great placement. Great to work with you, Ella. It's now coffee break. Time to have a bit of refreshment, to digest what you've heard, maybe make some new connections. Please do visit the exhibition if you're at home, put the kettle on, have a look at the content on the app, and we will convene back at 11:10. So thank you.